Hari Om. In IIM Bangalore, 5 universities in the world get together and we run a really top management program. Very big people, only 30 of them will come. They will spend 2 weeks in 5 locations, Japan, France, Bangalore in IIM Bangalore, then one place in US and so on. So this time when these 30 odd people came, they told me you must talk about Indian knowledge systems. Just before I started, just out of curiosity, I told them there was only one Indian. The rest were all from all over the world. It's a really global, diverse group. So I told them, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you 2 minutes. Just take your notebook, just jot down 2 bullets which you will call as your knowledge system. And they diligently sat down and thought about it and wrote a couple of perhaps bullets for each of them. I did not go through all of that because the entire 3 hours would have gone on it. I randomly asked, walked around the tables and said, can you please read to us? I was astonished to see that somebody said in 1983 we did something, that is our knowledge system. Somebody said in 1943 we did something, that is our knowledge system. Like that they were saying. Then I told them, I am going to talk to you about a knowledge system which is at least 5 millennia old, if not more. So I come from a civilization which has bathed in knowledge for millennia. So I told, what I am presenting before you is not knowledge of a country, it's a knowledge of a civilization. So I won't tell you there's a difference between a country and a civilization. A country is just a land. You can put the boundaries and political formations, etc., etc. That is called country. A civilization is not. Civilization is the life force of a society. It is what people breathe, what people discover, what people experiment, what people improve. So I said, so moment we say Indian knowledge system, there is sometimes a feeling Indian means India. India is a very awkward arrangement in 1947. So I am not talking about India now. I am talking about a civilizational knowledge. So that's what I was telling them, etc. So anyway, in right earnest, I should start Indian knowledge system only with Rig Veda. So I will first recite 2 mantras from a famous suktam in Rig Veda. I will tell you why I am reciting it and then we will move on. So this is that mantra. Na sadasin no sada asit tadanim nasit rajo no vyoma paroyat kimavari vakuhakasya sharman ambak kima asit gahanam gabhiram na mrityura asidamrutam na tarhinanatya anha asid praketaha anida vatam swadhaya tadekam tasmaat danyanna parakinchanyasa. There are 8 mantras actually. I have just recited the first 2 mantras. I did this because moment you recite a mantra like this, I am not talking about foreigners, I am talking about Indians. Indians will come and say, Purohit has arrived to do some puja. This is our understanding of Vedic corpus. You can go and Google Nasadiya Suktam if you wish. A lot of foreigners are reading these 8 mantras. Because this suktam, in this suktam, the Rishi is speculating on what is called cosmogeny, origin of the universe. Na sat asid, na asat asid tadanim. At that time it was neither sat nor asat. He says, what is all this? Na mrityu asid, there was no death, there is no life. Very beautiful speculation of what could have been the origin of the universe, because that is the central issue for scientists today. The curiosity of cosmogeny is there forever. Today's modern scientists are exactly like the rishis. They speculate. They want to understand some basic ideas of existence. So that is this sukta. You have in Rig Veda alone in the 10th mandala. This is in the 10th mandala. 129 sukta, 131st sukta, Hiranyagarbha sukta, Purusha sukta, all are in cosmogony. So this is the repository that many of us don't know. We think moment we recite it in a particular way, there is some mantra, some puja, etc. They are all very important ideas. So I'm talking about that kind of a knowledge system. I thought I will just make it very clear before we even start. I don't know how many of you can recognize this. Can anybody tell me what is this? This is the only living fort in the world. All forts are abandoned in the world. UNESCO said it. Can you tell me where it is? This was built by Raja Jaisal. This is Jaisalmer. It was built in 1156, which means in another 20 years we will celebrate 1000 years. Indians know how to put structures which will last kam se kam 1000 years, if not more. Rajaraja Chola's big temple, we celebrated 1000 years, some 10 years back. We know how to build structures which are 1000 years. That is, to me, Indian knowledge. There lies the Indian knowledge system. This is 1000 years old, very soon. And UNESCO says probably this is the only living fort because people are living there. It's not an abandoned fort. Okay? I don't know how many of you can recognize this structure. A 500-year-old structure. In a place I was born. This is called Tirumalai Nayakar Mahal in Madurai. Okay? Look at the beauty of those pillars. My grandfather used to sit there and adjudicate. He was a judge. He used to sit there because Madurai court was running there actually for quite some time before they put a building in the 40s and 50s and so on. Okay? Now, what is interesting is, if you look at our architecture books or Vastu Shastra, if I have to use a proper word, Samarangana Sutra Dhara, for example, which is the book for North Indian architecture. If you want an equivalent text for South Indian architecture, it is called Mayamatam. That's a Dravidian architecture. You will find how to design assembly halls. See, the challenge in assembly halls is you cannot have pillars. Visibility is gone. You should have a large span. So how do you build? It's a civil engineering problem. How do you build cantilevers which can stay on? There are designs available, in this. This is the same Tirumalai Nayakar Mahal. Just stand out and take a photo. That was, I stepped in. This is just standing in the open courtyard and taking, look at the beauty of this. 500 years, completely abandoned today. Still it looks like this. I went recently, I took my daughter and Sanila, I wanted to show them. I was feeling very bad for the whole day. It's all filth. This is how Government of India is maintaining, Government of Tamil Nadu is maintaining this structure. Okay? But the point is, again, how do you design an assembly hall? We have chapter 25 of Mayamatam will talk about different structures, different designs. Of course, this is Indian knowledge, if you wish, right? I don't know how many of you can recognize this. Can anybody tell me what is this? This is the only surviving dam which is 2000 years old. It is called Kallanai, the Grand Anai Cut. Karikal Chola built this in the 1st century CE. And we have identified 5 dams which are of the vintage of 2000 years. 4 of them have perished. This fellow is the 4th youngest. It's not the oldest, it's the 4th in that pecking order. This is the only dam which is surviving today, living, using, because Tiruchirappalli district, entire agriculture depends, of course, on this dam. Now, what did Britishers do? In fact, in Sangam period, if you have to read, you have to read Tamil literature to understand what is called watershed management. You should read Uttarameru inscriptions of Kanchipuram. Beautiful descriptions on how did they manage water tables. This whole watershed management, right? In Sangam period, we have a lot of references on that. So what did Britishers do? All that they did was they raised the height of the dam by 27 inches in 1804. When I was giving this lecture, one very senior professor from IIT Madras called me. As soon as I went home, he called me. He said, Mahadevan, I want to tell you something. There was a PhD thesis submitted in IIT Delhi 4 years back. And that PhD thesis said what Britishers did was totally wrong. This dam ought not to have been raised, the height of the dam ought not to have been raised by these 24 inches. That is the PhD thesis. Why? Because there is something called hydrological cycle. Once in 6-7 years, the pattern is such. They have deliberately designed it like this. Once in 7 years, the downstream must be destroyed. Only then it will be a sustainable thing. That's what the PhD thesis is. Western system does not have these deeper insights. They simply put 2 more granites. Now all that we do is we paint it once in 3-4 days, blue color, white color, and then everything is fine. This is Indian knowledge system, 2000 years old. This is a very beautiful structure. I was born very close to this place. This is the biggest temple in a district called Tirunelveli district in Tirunelveli in South Tamil Nadu. This is called Nellayappar temple. Okay? Now what is speciality of this? Each cluster has 48 pillars and there are 161 such clusters in this temple. All that you need to do is you have to take a stick and go there. You can do a 3-hour musical concert because Saptaswaras. Pandya kings were known for it. Madurai temple has it. When I was a child, I used to go and keep tapping it. Now Madurai tourist influx is so high, they realize this will get damaged, so they have now, you can only go and see it now. They have put aluminium casing to it and then everybody say this is called a musical pillar. You can't even touch it. You can't even put your hand inside and touch it. Whereas I have tapped the Madurai pillar also. Pandya kings are known for musical pillars. I want to tell you, if you want to know the best of science, engineering, technology, visit a temple, pray to the Lord, but then don't come out. You turn whichever direction, you will find a science, engineering, technology. This was the legacy of this country. So this was built by a Pandya king called Nendrasir Nedumaran in 700, which is, you have to talk minimum 1,500 years for anything. उसी से कम नहीं कर सकते हैं. Minimum you have to talk 1,500 years. Otherwise, no Indian knowledge system were all created at that vintage. That's the point I am trying to make. So he built it in 700 CE, 48 pillars, and then 161 such clusters are there. Obviously, when you tap it, the other pillar will vibrate. My question is, a single stone, you are not carving inside out, you are carving outside in. How did they carve it? You can't even put your hand inside. In fact, I can go on and on. I can spend 1 hour on this particular slide alone and talk to you about some principles of metalworking and metallurgy. I'm not going to do it because, this is not easy. The hardest known material for mankind, the hardest known material is granite. Granite is hard, granite is brittle also. If you apply some pressure, it will break wrongly. Whereas Pallava kings pioneered the concept of what is called rock-cut temples. Working on granite was a fine art in this country in 800. Narasimha Pallava and all that. 700, 800, this vintage. And it speaks of a very evolved metallurgy in this country. I want you to reflect on, just don't go see a temple and come. You should get stuck by the depth of what has gone behind it. And we need to tell our people about that. So let me just go through this journey. I just wanted to sprinkle a little bit and then I'll get a little more detail. So the question now is, what is this IKS? What is this Indian knowledge system? Right? So I will pose a definition, which I did when I wrote the book. So let me pose a proper definition. So this has 3 terms here: Indian, knowledge and system. So let's find out what is Indian, what is knowledge and what is system. Put them together, we know what is Indian knowledge system. Okay? So what is Indian? Indian has, of course, a generic meaning, anything indigenous, source of knowledge generated by the Indian society. But I want to qualify it very, very strongly. I want to tell you it has a geographical meaning and it has a demographic meaning. I want you to understand it. And what is the geographic meaning? It is not this 1947 India. It's a civilizational knowledge. It is called Akhanda Bharat, which goes almost up to Iran and the on the western side, Thailand perhaps on the eastern side, Burma definitely a little bit of that. North-south was very tight. You had the Himalayas and the ocean on the, so there is not much here, but on this side. So when you say Indian, it is Akhanda Bharat. Undivided India is what we should understand. Second is the most important thing. Indian is not somebody who is having a passport with an Indian. Most of the Indians don't qualify there. I remember when I wrote this book, there was a lady by name Stella Kremrish. In 1920, she came from University of Chicago, spent 20 years in Kolkata. The best book I have ever seen in Hindu temples is her book. The character today's word use, it may be Times New Roman font 8, some 600 pages. So imagine the density of the work. I'm saying this. Very thoroughly she has studied Vastu Shastra and Hindu temples and she has written. Her book on Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, she has written. To me, she is an Indian. Okay? To me, people like, Max Muller is not Indian. The reason is, you have to, it's like a pickle which is, or it is a jamun which is in a sugar juice. You have to immerse in the society for a considerable period of time, live here, live with the people. That's what she did. Then you understand the nuance of this culture. Coming and going, sitting there and then learning Sanskrit is not Indian, which is what a lot of Europeans have done to Indology. They have done actually disservice. A lot of people seriously read the text. I started, first 1 month I wasted reading the Western Indological books before I started writing Indian knowledge system. Wisdom came to me, I kept all of them aside. I read from archives some 10,000 pages in Sanskrit. Yukti Kalpadaru, Samarangana, everything I downloaded and I let it take a little more time. I was just reading 24/7 before I wrote the book. I realized there was a difference between these two. So, demographically, it is those who have born and or lived for a substantial period of time, fully integrating with the native culture practices, they are Indians. I want it to be very clear. All others can write about IKS and not IKS. Max Muller, what he has written according to me is about IKS, not IKS. I want to make this very clear. So this is the Indian part. Knowledge is a little easier because what is knowledge? Knowledge emanates out of wisdom, right? Deep experiences, insights, contemplation. That's how knowledge is created in any society at any time. So, but then what is special about the Indian knowledge is it is formal repository in literary sources as well as there are a lot of oral resources. When I say oral sources, I don't mean Vedic. Vedic is a formal resource which has its lipi. You may transmit it orally, so don't mistake me. Oral means there are so many things. My grandmother tells 1,000 things about what I should do when I get a headache. That's oral knowledge. This country has a rich oral tradition which doesn't have a lipi, which doesn't have a book in which you have systematically captured it. So it is formal and informal in the sense it is oral. It pervades all the dimensions, spiritual, religious, and what you may call it as secular. I don't use the word secular. I say whatever is useful for day to day. Engineering, technology, mathematics. You need all of them to make life. Otherwise, this building will not stand like this. We can't, comfortably sit here and then discuss because there is a bit of engineering behind it. Some calculation of forces, weight, load bearing, etc., etc. All those are there. But then comes the system. System is a very structured methodology and a classification scheme. Many are available. Swamiji very often used to tell me Chaturdasha Vidyasthana. I heard it only from Swamiji for the first time. Although perhaps I knew it, but I didn't connect it the way Swamiji connected it to me. That's one methodology, Chaturdasha Vidyasthana. In Vishnu Purana it is there, in Manusmriti it is written, Ashtadasha, Chaturdasha. But that talks one part of the corpus. But then there are multiple classification schemes available. So for the purpose of writing the book, I created a structure, so I will show it to you. What is Indian knowledge corpus according to me? So this is what it is. Okay? You have literary, non-literary, that's the first level of split. In the literary, you have Sanatana Dharmic literature, other Dharmic literature, and regional. So you can broadly classify them like that. Okay? Sanatana Dharma is based on Veda. That is our parama pramana. Shruti eva asmakam parama pramanam. Tasma tena dvara yat asmabhi jnasyate tas sarvam sanatana dharmasya vishayah bhavishyati. So Sanatana Dharma literature, in which you have the core. Core is the Chaturdasha Vidyasthana. Vedas, Vedangas, Dharma Shastra, Itihasa, Darshanas, Puranas, etc. Right? But then Sanatana Dharma has pulled out phenomenal amount of material. This book only discusses the right. I never discuss the left. My book on Indian knowledge system is only about engineering, technology, mathematics, architecture, town planning, health, wellness, public administration, management. Who said it is not there? Because many Indians, otherwise very good thinkers, serious people, they always think Indian knowledge system means some mantra, some Veda, period, not a full comma. It's a full stop. I want to demystify that. Indian knowledge system has plenty of very useful material which modern science is using, which we discovered at least 700 years before the Westerners figured it out. But we were not told that. So Indians themselves don't know such things and so on. So you have all that. Then of course on the other dharmic traditions, you have the Bauddha and Jaina, which are very important. Later Sikh and all that came. See, I confined my book to only 1200 CE, not beyond that. There were reasons for it, I have written it. That's why Sikh is not coming. Today you can add Sikh also, another dharma and so on. But then you have a regional literature which is 1,000 times this. All these are retold. The entire Sanatana dharmic literature is retold. With a local context, with a local story, improvise it, add a little bit of meaning to it so that people can understand. So that literature may be just 1,000 times this. And we are sitting on a corpus, we have not even scratched the tip of the iceberg yet. So all these form what is called literary. Because they have a lipi, they have a formal way you write it, etc., etc. Then of course you have an oral tradition. This is the only country in which you I keep saying this, you travel on the road, every 30 kilometers you cross, your taste on the tongue will change. Food has that much variety. The dosa you eat in southern tip of this country will be very different dosa you eat in New Delhi railway station. All are masala dosa only. So much of richness we have in food, life practices, art forms, health, folklore, what not. All these are Indian knowledge. But they are not written down. Okay. So let me, having said this, I would only very quickly show you a screenshot sort of a thing, just to tell you what it contains. So this is 3000 BC to 500 CE. And why did I take this? Where are these classifications coming from? These are the classifications of the modern people. And why did I take it? Because 500 to 1500, you go and read. 500 to 1500 is called Dark Ages. Now they are trying to remove that from the Wikipedia everywhere. Because it was so bright in India by then. It was 1000 watts bulb here. But for the Western society, it is called Dark Ages. Why? After the fall of the Roman Empire, 300 CE. And then the arrival of Newton, etc., from 1500. They have no clue of what happened in between. That was called Dark Ages. India was already super bright by that time. So anyway, I have used that time frame. So, I put some keywords just to give you a little sense of, and this is not an exhaustive list by the by. This is conditioned by my ignorance, my availability of time and availability of space. That's all. Just see, you name anything is there. Chandra Shastra, you have binary mathematics, for example. Right? There's something called De Bruijn sequence. In 1983 they found. That is there in Chandra Shastra. Yamata Rajavana Salagam actually is what is called De Bruijn sequence of length 3, k equal to 3. In 1983 only they found it, computer scientists found it. And that's what Yamata Rajavana Salagam is in our Chandra Shastra actually. It's a binary cycle. Yamata will be 1, 0, 0. Mata Ra will be 0, 0, 0. So like that you will get 8, 2 power 3. It's called a binary cycle of length 3. They called it as De Bruijn cycle, which is there in this one sutra of Chandra Shastra. Just like that. Grammar, wellness, psychology, lexicography, mathematics, public administration. This is for the period 3000 BCE to 500 CE. If you move a little further, 500 CE to 1800 CE, you will find fantastic work on math, improving. Next work. Kerala School of Math, 400, 300 years. Astronomy went on improving. Nilakanta Somayaji's model in 1500 CE is a very good model. It's not the right model, but it made a tremendous progress in understanding astronomy. Actually. Beautiful work, Kerala School of Math, etc. So, you have Samarangana Sutradhara, you have Aparajita Pricha. If you want to understand the architecture in Gujarat, step wells, the Western India, Aparajita Pricha. If you want to understand the Nagara style of architecture in North India, Samarangana Sutradhara. If you want to understand the Dravidian temples and structures, Mayamatam. I mean, all round. This Samarangana Sutradhara, item 11 that you have written here, this was actually authored by King Bhojaraj. Bhopal is actually Bhojpal. It is not Bhopal, it is Bhojpal. Because he built that city, he wrote Samarangana Sutradhara, Bhoja. So it is Bhojpal actually. Today you call it as Bhopal. 11th century text. Just, you have astronomy, you have metalworking, so many alchemy. So many things are there. This is during Dark Ages, by the by.